Brendan Fraser versus Austin Butler, one of the tightest Best Actor races we've seen in years. Narratives going both ways, a lot of underlying history that could go in one direction or the other. In today's video, I make a prediction finally, and I try my best to explain why. But man, oh man, this is going to be close, and I think it's 50-50. On who pulls it out. If you guys are here and you want a video like this for Best Actress, let me know by dropping that like down below. Leave your comment, who is winning Best Actor, and would you like that next video tomorrow? And then eventually, I'll make my full batch of predictions. But let's start with what I think is the most obvious factor thus far. What awards have they won to this point? And that, well, it's a long list, but I'll narrow it down to the ones that I think serve the utmost importance, and that is Austin Butler winning the Golden Globe and the BAFTA. And as much smack that I want to talk against the Golden Globes, they are somewhat important when it comes to trying to predict Best Actor. And then this year, while the BAFTA's a lot different than what we got from SAG, I mean completely different, I still believe it's not going to be that way with the Oscars. We could see 2 and 2, we could see 1 and 3, but I don't think it's going to be 4 for 4 either way.
Liar!
Then we have Fraser, Critics' Choice, which I will admit is probably last on the list of these 4 award shows in playing factor as to who is going to win the Oscar, right? But it still is somewhat important, and I voted for Fraser. Fraser won. I did it. Then there's the SAG Award, the Screen Actors Guild. You have a body of voters that I believe could somewhat give you some insight into how that Oscar body is going to look. Obviously a lot smaller with the Screen Actors Guild, but it's also the one that happens right before the Oscars. This is going to play the most influence into what momentum whatever winner will have going into the Oscar ceremony. And Brendan Fraser pulled that out. Brendan Fraser also gave, once again, a very heartfelt and emotional speech. And I think there is a lot of love towards Fraser from the actors. And you're looking through past examples of actors who have won or lost in similar situations. And I thank Twitter for this because a lot of people are talking about it. The fact that Mickey Rourke lost for The Wrestler in 2008 when he won the Golden Globe and the BAFTA. Sean Penn won the Critics' Choice Award and the Oscar, which is the exact same boat that Fraser's in at this point. That being said, one thing I haven't seen a lot of people talking about on Twitter with that specific example is that Sean Penn's movie Milk was a Best Picture nominee. Mickey Rourke's movie The Wrestler was not. In this case, it's the opposite. Austin Butler's movie Elvis is a Best Picture nominee, and The Whale, even though a lot of people thought it was going to be, myself included, is not.
Say what?
That was all the way back in 2008, and a lot of things were different at that point. With the amount of movies that were nominated, now you have more opportunity. But should that not help the case of Austin Butler's Elvis? Should that not hurt the case of The Whale? Well, you had 10 movies, 10 opportunities, and you couldn't even get a Best Picture nomination. Well, Austin, does it matter if the actor's movie gets a Best Picture nomination or not? Well, let's look at the past 10 examples. Last year, Will Smith won for King Richard. King Richard was a Best Picture nomination. The year before, Anthony Hopkins in The Father, Joaquin Phoenix and The Joker, Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody, Gary Oldman, Darkest Hour, Casey Affleck, Manchester by the Sea, Leo, The Revenant, Eddie Redmayne, The Theory of Everything, Matthew McConaughey, Dallas Buyers Club, and Daniel Day-Lewis in Lincoln. Every movie has been nominated for Best Picture. Every actor in that movie won the award. So you have one example in history that puts it in the favor of Brendan Fraser, while at the same time going against the fact that, well, his movie wasn't nominated for Best Picture, so can we really rely on that example? I look at the SAG Award and being the most recent award and the one that goes right into the Oscars, and I look at the fact that he has that momentum regardless. Is not being nominated for Best Picture truly going to factor in? Well, let's look at the performances and the movies that both are starring in. Brendan Fraser's The Whale, it's not a biopic. It is something that does convey emotion beautifully, and it does feel real, but a lot of the times we look at actors playing actual people in biopics, and that seems to be something that could resonate more towards a voter, especially someone as significant as Elvis. I mean, Rami Malek won for Bohemian Rhapsody, playing Freddie Mercury, and a lot of people looked down on that movie, and I personally thought the performance was really good, but people looking back on it are like, well, it's just because it's a biopic. Well, you have another pure example with Austin Butler playing Elvis. Just because it's a biopic, I mean, that may be all he needs to take home this award. But then I look at Taron Egerton and Rocket Man, and the fact that it's a very similar situation. I think the performance was just as good. It may even be my personal favorite of the three. Yes, it was a musical, and that may have hurt that movie, but Taron didn't even get a nomination for playing an actor beautifully in a biopic when I believe he was one of the best performances of that year. So can we really use that as an example? I think we can. I think the fact that it is a biopic helps his chances. The fact that it's Elvis helps his chances. But again, I look at Fraser's story, where he comes from, his history in Hollywood, what happened with him, how he's making a resurgence, and he has all of the momentum behind him, the history and the love in terms of him as a person. And no, that shouldn't necessarily mean he wins Best Actor because it's all about the performance, right? Will people really be thinking about that? Will they truly be thinking about just the performance when voting for Brendan Fraser? And this is coming from someone who believes Brendan Fraser gives the best performance of the year, but I can't be biased. I have to look at what everyone's going to be voting for, and it's his performance in The Whale, and they really love Brendan Fraser.
I love you.
Now, Butler's great. This takes nothing away from Butler. I thought he absolutely nailed Elvis. He spent all of the time needed in the build-up, and he lived like Elvis. He sounded like Elvis, and I think he gave one of the best performances of the year, but he doesn't have that Hollywood history. And this is not me saying I would vote like this. I'm just trying to get into the mind of the voter. So I'm saying to myself at this point in the video, Brendan Fraser has all of the momentum. It won the award that feels the most necessary to win, especially at a time like this, right before the Oscars, in the SAG Award. But there are two factors that are keeping me from fully committing to Fraser winning this award. The first factor is the obvious wild card here. I've talked about Butler, I've talked about Fraser. Why is no one talking about Colin Farrell? Colin Farrell was the early front runner, and I'm talking before the major award ceremonies took place. So it's not like he has the first or second best odds to win. He is clearly that third spot, that third person who has, I think, the least best chance to win, but still a chance, right? So I can't completely rule him out, and he gave a phenomenal performance on the level of the other two. But the real factor here, and the one that is just making me hesitate, because every part of me thinks Fraser has the momentum at this point. We are at a point in time, a week out from the Oscars, where Fraser, it feels like he has this in the palm of his hand in terms of where it's all shifting towards. But I look at the Hair and Makeup Award, and I look at the fact that The Whale just, it hasn't been able to win it so far. We look at the Makeup and Hairstyling Guild. Elvis won period hair and period makeup, and The Whale won special makeup effects. Now, that does not serve The Whale well, because no movie has only ever won that specific award and won the Oscar. And normally, we've seen a plethora of examples over the last several years. I think of Jessica Chastain and The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and I believe Gary Oldman was one, but there is always a connection. Whatever movie wins hair and makeup at the Oscars, and a lot of signs point to that being Elvis this year, just because of what it's been winning up until this point, well, that usually ends up being the winner of the Best Actor or Actress nomination. And if it's Elvis, that's going to serve his chances very well. If it's The Whale, that would go against a lot of things that we've seen up until this point for hair and makeup, which in turn would be great for Brendan Fraser's chances, but I'm not sure if The Whale can pull this out. I hope there's a wild card win. That would screw everybody up. So now it feels like I'm off the Brendan Fraser train, and I'm back on the Austin Butler train, because hair and makeup feels like a very important thing to consider when making your prediction. But the Oscars for the last 2 years, they've been on a run of breaking trends. They've been on a run of doing things, nominating movies, and allowing movies to win that should not have won. I mean, last year, Coda, that victory defied a lot of odds, and it was the first time in this, and this category a movie had won here and hadn't won here and hadn't been nominated here, and, well, it won. It broke the trend. And I'm not saying these trends are trends that should be broken. I'm just saying these are trends that eventually will be broken. It all comes down to if this hair and makeup trend, if this actor being nominated and winning for a movie that wasn't nominated for Best Picture trend for, I think, 12 years in a row, that's a long time, if those trends are going to end this year. And I guess the final question is, Will they? Yeah, you know, I like going against the grain sometimes. It pays off every now and then, but most of the time it doesn't. Like the Golden Globes earlier this year. Last year I went against the grain with Nicole Kidman. I was right then. Will I be right this time when I picked Brendan Fraser to win Best Actor at the Oscars? I don't know.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
If I had to tell you who has more going for him right now in terms of where it has trended, I think Austin Butler is your winner, but sometimes you just have to go with your gut, man. Sometimes you have to go against everything you just talked about in the last 5 minutes of this video. So I'm going to give you my prediction right now, and I am going to predict Brendan Fraser. I think this is the year that a couple of these trends are broken. I think the Critics' Choice win helps, but I also believe the SAG win is going to push Fraser in a direction along with his history in Hollywood, along with the love that people have for him, along with the performance, which I haven't even really talked about his performance, but it was absolutely incredible what he did in that movie. And there's a part of me that believes Fraser is going to get votes because people are going to vote with their heart. Again, Elvis, integral figure. Butler was amazing. I think Austin Butler seems like a good guy, but Brendan Fraser, man, he just has so much emotion going for him. Then you strip everything back and you look at just the performance, and while both are spectacular, and here's where I think I could lose probably half of you, I prefer Fraser's, and I think some people will feel that way.
Not me.
A lot of people will be on the other side of the boat, but again, we're talking the two of the best performances of the year. Both were spectacular. It just comes down to who was a little more spectacular. I think we could ask that same question for Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. And again, if you guys want to see a video on those, please let me know down below. Thanks for being here. It's a very different kind of video if you guys enjoy this type of thing. If not, then we'll just go straight to Oscar predictions and we'll be done. But let me know. Thank you guys. I'll see you soon.